Sky in front of a sellout crowd, and it's sure to not disappoint. Under 1 minute to go here, Caitlin Clark finds a wide open Melissa Smith there, giving the Fever the lead, and Indiana ends up winning it. But what happened to that Chicago defense? She was wide open, and we saw that Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston connection on full display there in Indiana. There you go. You see the final. The Indiana Fever coming away with the win. They did last time by 1. This time, 91-83. We saw multiple lead changes. No lead was greater than 7 for a majority of that game. But Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and the Indiana Fever come away with the win today. Julianne Viani-Braen, who is on the call joining us from Indiana. And Julianne, before we get into it, watching this from home, you could hear the crowd. There was so much personality with the players as well, whether it was blowing kisses or interacting there in front of a sellout crowd. Just kind of paint the picture for us. What was it like? Your biggest takeaways there from these rookies' performances, especially in front of that sellout crowd?
Listen, the sellout crowd is what has been awesome to see across the WNBA, and so being present here in this presence, I thought Chicago actually responded pretty well considering how loud it got in here, and they were all about Indiana, and there were times where I thought Indiana was going to pull away with it, but Chicago bounced back. They really made it pound for pound, punch for punch, exactly kind of what we wanted to watch and see here today. I'm not really surprised, but it was fun to watch the personalities of Reese, of the different players out there just perform and do what they do best. And I thought that they played pretty hard today.
And the Fever, for them, it's their first back-to-back wins of the season so far. Caitlin Clark, we saw her really start to play and perform like herself, especially towards the end. We saw that Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark connection on full display there. Your biggest takeaways from Caitlin and her performance, and also how her and Aaliyah Boston are just getting better and better together.
You know, I talked to Clark about that before the game, and she said that her and Boston have just developed that chemistry. It's slowly coming. I mean, the first few games of the season, you've got to expect there's going to be growing pains with this young group. Last year, the youngest group in the league. This year, just some second-year players and some rookies. The two of them are starting to really understand each other in the pick-and-roll game, the pick-and-pop game, and how Caitlin Clark is being covered with the spacing. I think Caitlin's doing a really good job maintaining her dribble and then finding Boston and Boston rolling in or rolling out with the ball. And so much attention is paid to both these players that it's going to open up the floor for both of them. And I think you're just seeing just the very beginning of what could be a really beautiful relationship on the court between these two players, and a fun combo to watch.
Absolutely. Caitlin Clark, her 7th game this season with 20-plus points. And the Sky, they kept it tight for a good chunk of this game. Marina Mabry, she was incredible as well. And really, Chicago, they were out-rebounding Indiana for a good portion of the game. Looking ahead for both of these squads, Julianne, what are you looking forward to for both of them as we have more of the season to look forward to?
Well, I think we saw today that Chicago's a team that's really, they play physical, they're tough. They're really good when they can get out and run the basketball, and they can get an inside and outside attack. And they got in foul trouble today. That was a problem, but their second and third chance opportunities, this is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league, and that's their calling card. That's their bread and butter. And in the second half, they weren't able to do that as well, and perhaps part of that was the foul trouble. But on the other side, Indiana shot the ball very well from the perimeter. I think they're moving the ball better, and they've improved their defensive side of the ball. I think for them, moving forward, that's going to be a big focal point. They've got the offensive skill set, but it's about putting together the consistency. Caitlin Clark said that after the game. It was just about us stringing together some wins and getting more consistent. And their defense looked a lot better here today. And that comes with trust. That comes with time with a young team. And I think you'll see that start to improve, too, as the season continues to progress. But good job from both both sides of both teams. They both play hard. We like this rivalry, and I think a lot of the country likes it as well.
Yeah, it's certainly been fun to watch, and we're looking forward to many, many matchups to come. Julianne Viani-Braen joining us from that sellout crowd in Indiana as the Fever beat the Sky 91-83. Getting a look at the upcoming schedules for both squads. Next up for Chicago, they have the Dallas Wings on June 20th. For the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston taking on the Mystics on June 19th. And let's welcome in Tarika Foster-Brasney to talk about this very exciting matchup. There were so many lead changes. I don't think any lead was greater than 7 for the entirety of the game. I want to talk about Indiana first because they had 4 players that scored in the double digits, including Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, and we saw that connection on full display. Your biggest takeaways from the Fever and their performance today?
Well, it was definitely the balance, right? You had 23 from Caitlin, 19 from Kelsey, 17. You had balance, okay? And that is what we absolutely have been waiting for. We've been waiting to see when this team would start to gel, at least to the point where you could see the connection between the 2 biggest stars in your front court, and then, of course, between Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin. I have always said, and I still believe that Caitlin's biggest asset to her game is her ability to pass the ball inside, her ability to create assists. And the way that she was able to find Aaliyah and Alyssa in the paint off the block today was completely phenomenal. The way that Aaliyah Boston has really stepped up over the last 2 games and really shown why she was the #1 overall pick last year and how important it is to continue to get her the ball. Didn't really seem like earlier this season she was a focal point to the offense, but you can see when her and Caitlin are working together, this Fever team really can play with the best of them. And the connection between her and Alyssa Smith, again, later on in that 4th quarter, not sure where the collapse was for Chicago defensively, but they left Alyssa wide open under the basket, and the court awareness of Caitlin to find her to keep this lead down the stretch was really important and really critical for the Fever to close this one out.
Yeah, we had that graphic for Caitlin Clark there, and anytime you're putting up numbers during your rookie season in the same company as Asia Wilson and Candace Parker, you're certainly doing something right. I want to talk about Chicago, what went wrong for them. I know it was hard to pinpoint it defensively, but they were looking great for a good portion of it. As mentioned, 9 lead changes, so it was a really tight game, and they actually out-rebounded Indiana in the first. What went wrong? I know we saw that play where Alyssa Smith was wide open, but what went wrong down the stretch for the Sky?
Yeah, it was definitely defensive collapses, right? Not playing the right players in the right moment. Now, not only did Chicago own the boards, but Chicago won the turnover battle as well, which was incredibly important. It was something that we talked about coming into this, you and I, Jackie, where I said you have to make sure that you don't let the little minute things get in the way. That's what happened in the first game, and essentially that's what happened in this one. You didn't really see a lot of touches in the second half with Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese, but they were also in foul trouble. They had 5 fouls, and Angel, she collected her 5th very early in that 4th quarter. It makes it very difficult for Coach Witherspoon to really figure out how to create the right rotations when 2 of the players that are incredibly critical for your offense can't really be as aggressive as you need them to be because they have to manage their foul control. So that was important. I did love the fact that Coach Witherspoon brought Kennedy Carter off the bench today. She was huge. Had her in a starting lineup today versus being off the bench. That was very important, I believe, not only defensively for this team, but just also to give that energy and that momentum. But unfortunately, the defensive collapses in the 4th quarter just proved to not be enough, and Indiana took advantage of it.
Yeah, Kennedy Carter finishing with 18 points there. You mentioned the fouls, the foul trouble for Angel Reese. Of course, in the last game, we saw it got really chippy. There was that flagrant one, on Angel Reese. That was not intentional. So are you surprised at the lack of chippiness that we saw in this matchup, or is that what you were expecting?
No, I actually thought that this was what we saw today is exactly what I expected us to see. There was still some fire between these two teams. This is clearly a budding rivalry, and we love a good rivalry in sports, right? So we certainly expected some physicality and some competitiveness, but the call on the court at the time was the correct call, although not intentional. It was unnecessary, and therefore the referees made the right call with making it a flagrant. And guess what? Everyone moved on. Basketball is basketball.
I loved all the personality we saw as well in front of that sellout crowd. We had Angel Reese blowing kisses at the crowd, her Joker shoes, and the story behind that, and how she's got a shoe guy. Certainly going to be fun to watch, especially down the stretch here. I want to talk about the Fever, though, and kind of circle back to that connection with Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. Next up, they have the Mystics, then the Dream, and then the Sky once again on June 23rd. Now that we're starting to see that connection really gel, do you think we're just going to keep seeing them rattle off the wins? Because it's the first time this season we've seen them win back-to-back.
Well, I think this is a very good start for them. Keep in mind that this Washington Mystics team that they're going up against is also feeling themselves a little bit because they finally got out of the losing column. Aaliyah Edwards, another rookie in this year's rookie class, is continuing to show why she is a star. She's gotten opportunities because of the injury to Shakira Austin that had her sidelined for a couple weeks. Now, in that same vein, they are missing Brittany Sykes. So this is an opportunity again for Caitlin and Kelsey to kind of work together, show what they can do at the guard position, because one of the best defending guards for Washington won't be there. It's also, again, another opportunity for Aaliyah to go and put on the kind of show that she's been putting on for us over these last two games. While Aaliyah Edwards is great at what she's doing and she's developing and coming along, she's still finding her rhythm finishing at the rim. Aaliyah Boston, however, knows how to finish at the rim. So it's going to be a great test for this young Washington team that's still trying to figure out their identity, but it should absolutely be some continuity that we're seeing with these teams between Aaliyah, Nalissa, and Caitlin, now that they've started to put together a couple games where they looked really good.
Tarika joining us here on HQ as we were talking about the Fever and the Sky, and it certainly lived up to the hype with the Fever coming out there 91-83. Thanks so much, Tarika. We appreciate it. And the Fever with 4 players in the double digits. Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky, they did not get the win, but Angel Reese still having a fantastic rookie season and making a little bit of history of with herself. 6 straight double-doubles for Angel Reese there. That is one of the most consecutive double-doubles by a rookie in WNBA history.